Do, 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 do. Hey, everybody. Am I there yet? Hello, hello. Oh. Hmm. Okay, you can hear me. Right, sorry, I'm just having a bit of connection issue here with my local chat. Just going to get that loaded up again. Ah, there we go. So we have some. We have something, I believe. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, that's interesting. Seem to have lost my recording path, which is not what I was hoping for. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, well, I guess that's going to have to be all right. I don't know quite why that would be. Just give me a sec. I lost my local recording. Interesting. Just 1 second. That's interesting. I seem to have no monitoring. That's kind of weird. Wonder where that's gone then. Select that one. Routing. 1 2. Yeah. 1 2. Okay. 1 2. Yeah. Hello. 1 2. Okay. I seem to have that now. Okay. Yep. That's good. Right. Sorry about that. Just a bit of technical. Obviously, someone's been messing around with things. So, yeah. Great treat today. We've got Mr. Jamie Lidell, I think would probably be the way to pronounce it. He's in Nashville. Really talented vocalist and music producer, songwriter. He's got a fantastic studio and his video quality is really good. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully there's no feedback. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Right, I'm just going to pause a second, which is probably not what you want to see, because I just want to... I'm just going to step away from the mic a second. Thanks for your patience. Back in a sec. Okay, what a magnificent knob. Yeah, that came in via Azzyhead in the chat room, which was, if you remember last week, Yoad was asking about just a dedicated controller for specific functions. And that looks quite promising. I think he wanted a fader, mine, but it's just, I think it's just a MIDI controller by the looks of it. Let's have a look. So it's just a plug and play device. Let's see what that one does. Let's see what that is.
Introducing Knack, the new assignment center for knob that changes the game forever.
Interesting.
Knack allows you to assign on-screen parameters to your knob across any number of windows, different applications, across multiple desktops, and multiple screens. Simply hover your mouse cursor over a parameter and press a shortcut of your preference to save the assignment and instantly take control. Each time you activate an assignment, Knack will take care of the rest.
Oh, I see. So it works on mouse position and active application window. That's neat.
Minimized. Switch to another desktop. Even move the window to bring its parameter within reach. Create unlimited number of assignments, each with its own sensitivity and its own undo functionality. With fully customizable smart shortcuts, you don't have to worry about conflicts with your existing applications. You can even use the arrow keys to navigate to any assigned parameter.
That's quite clever.
Knack. Only available for now.
Yeah, so hello, Jamie. Right, we are live. Just to let you know, in case you have a bout of Tourette's or anything.
Well, you know, if I have a bout of Tourette's, that might just carry on.
Yeah, no. The reason I was showing that was it was because last week, if I go, let's have this one. That makes it a bit more. Last week, one of the guests, Yoad Navo, was saying that he was after a sort of dedicated controller. I think he was after a fader, but that's called knob with the knock center. I guess it's no more snigger-worthy. Yeah, well, you know, it's a bit like that kind of how we chuckled. Knob. Yeah, exactly. How we chuckled when Mackie introduced that for the same reasons. But I don't know how much it costs. What is it? It looks expensive.
Quite similar to the Monome. Remember, Monome released a nice,
€200.
Sturdy spinner like that.
Oh, did they? Okay, no, I don't remember that. It does look, but looks like the sort of thing that one might want on your desk if you were to be taken seriously. I mean, a man with so much wood behind him. If you'll excuse the, it might sit nicely in your studio as well.
You're going to give me Tourette's. You're trying to induce it, aren't you?
Hardly.
I won't. You know, I've been out of England long enough. I don't succumb to this.
You don't succumb to the entendre. Is that the cure? Is the cure to move to America, where it's I think it depends what part of America you're in. I can't remember. I've been to Nashville a couple of times, and I can't remember what the sort of overlying social trait is. Are people generally sort of quite cynical and, you know, is it similar, or is it very, very straight ahead and kind of what you see is what you get?
It's a bit of a weird one, Nashville. It's kind of, you know, look, I lived in Berlin for a long time. Oh, what's up, Gaz?
Hey, we got Gaz too.
Hey, how you doing? You're in such a light place, man.
Myself up.
Look at us and
I multiply. Yeah.
Yeah, right. What's up?
Big fan.
You're
Big fan,
in such
Jamie.
a light place. Oh, great to see you. I'm a big fan too, man.
Hey.
Yeah, go for the Jesus shot.
I know.
I'm in
look
heaven.
at this. We're in like
I'm
caves.
a massive fan.
Oh, I'm a big fan too, guys. I really am. The beard is absolutely incredible.
We're all great. We'll leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that. I was rambling on about Nashville and what I don't know if I could summarize Nashville. To be honest, I live in this cave, So I've always lived in various caves around the world. So I'm, you know, I'm ignorant.
That's where you are.
Of cave life.
Well, to be honest, from what I remember about Nashville, it's best to stay indoors as much as possible because it is so hot a lot of the time.
I mean, that's why studios are great. You know, I never feel bad being inside, even when it's hot outside. I'm like, nope.
I'll tell you
but,
what,
you know,
does it still rain about 3 o'clock every afternoon, like a sort of a mini tropical?
I like that.
Yeah,
see, I do really like that. I like. I mean, I've got a little 2-year-old, and I love sitting outside and watching torrential rainstorms. It's actually a really magical thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of magic here in Nashville. It's a special little, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I tell you what, I really miss because we used to go to Nashville because there used to be a time when Summer NAMM was held there and it was still quite big and we could still get a lot of content that was sort of relevant to us. It's just sort of fallen away. And also Summer NAMM now falls inside the summer holidays. So a flight to America at that time of year is just crazy expensive. So it just it sort of priced itself out, which is a bit of a shame. But, you know, hey, I'll be back one day. I'm glad to see someone's enjoying it. I'm trying to remember what all I remember were just the fantastic on Main Street with the kind of every bar has the best Telecaster player you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, no. I take that for granted now. I mean, the worst thing to be in Nashville is a guitarist. I mean, you know, that's why I'm I'm definitely an odd bird in this town. There's not many folks that have, like, you know, a Rhodes Chroma and a Jupiter 4 and an OBX. It's a few actually, but you know, I'm one of the weirdos in town, and I like that. Because, you know, if I was in LA, I'll just be like another bloke with quite a good home studio. But here, I'm definitely kind of an oddity.
Right. I want to try something before we're actually running the show. And this is, I've got a button here, which is what I was trying to do earlier, which will stop my voice going to the main outs, but you should still be able to hear it.
Okay.
No, okay, that doesn't work. That's fine. That's good to know. I'm glad I did that then, because that's the button I can press. That's the button when I can press when we've got say this on the screen, or you know,
it's
I'm going to cough for a while.
It's the cough button.
Because apparently on the system, it's possible to create this kind of like green room audio bus where everybody can talk, but it doesn't go out live. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Anyway.
I mean, you know, it doesn't go out anywhere.
Yeah, right.
Which is good.
I suppose so, yeah. But then I can't. I suppose I could just write it down and hold up a piece of paper. But then, you know, that's probably not going to work. Right. Well, it's absolutely fantastic to have you. Thank you so much for coming. It was a bit of a last minute, Gaz. I just sort of said, well, I'll send you the topics, Jamie, so you just get an idea of the sort of thing that, you know, how it works. And he went, what, tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
It's really good timing for me, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's only. Oh yeah, that would be terrible because that would be.
Yeah, it's terrible.
7 o'clock in the morning.
Nightmare.
Yeah,
it kind of would be actually. Yeah,
yeah. So it doesn't work so well. We do get the occasional LA person in, but it's a tough. I think Diego Stocco sometimes comes in from LA, and he always looks pretty just woken up kind of guy. Okay, well,
I'm a dad though. I'm on dad time, so I'm good.
Ah, so you've been up 2 years old. So what? That's probably you've been up for 7 hours.
Oh. Yeah, exactly. I've been up for a good 3 and a bit. Yeah.
Okay. Oh well, that's all right.
It's fun.
Okay, let's do a show. Why not? Right, let me just get all my ducks in a row, and let me get all of this sort of stuff going on. Right. Okay. Stand by. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 528, recording today, Wednesday, the 21st of March, 2018. This is the music technology podcast. We talk about all things to do with controllers, synthesizers, electronics, recording equipment, live production, live performance, studios, all of that kind of thing. So if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, you're in for a treat. And this week, I also want to say thank you very much to Isotope, who will be providing a prize. You can win a copy of Ozone 8 a little bit later, which is their fantastic suite of plugins that enable you to get the most out of your mix. You're using their kind of AI technology, all of their clever stuff to make your mix sound even better than it already does. But this week we're very pleased to have a new guest in the form of Mr. Jamie Lidell, who is there in Nashville. Jamie, of course, well, you've got a lovely studio there. What's that behind you? Is that a Voyager, a Mini Moog, and a Rhodes Chroma, right?
Yeah, you can make out a clav. I've got a Prophet 2000 under it. Yeah,
nice.
I've got some old Korgs, and I've got all kinds of stuff. SP 1200, MPC 60, Jupiter 4, Prophet 5, OBXA, bunch of good mics, and you know, loads of outboard. I've got an Infernal machine, Publisher.
Oh, Publisher, the old school Stock Aitken and Waterman chorus flyer.
It's incredible, that thing. Yeah, I've not used it for that, but I should. I should do, and I should be so lucky moment here.
Well, they used to fly in because their backing vocals were always really good on those records, or really sort of well made, shall we say? And they used to kind of build them up and then spin them in choruses using the Publisher in the early days, as far as I remember.
It's unreal. It can sample for 20 seconds.
Wow, and that's ancient technology as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Of course, Jamie, of course, fantastic vocalist, recording artist. I don't looper, but beatboxer sounds like the wrong term. But somebody builds up kind of layers. I mean, I've been watching some of your videos recently, and your stuff is great. And you've got a fantastic voice. And you're in Nashville, the home of the hits, right?
Wow, you know, yeah, it's a strange one. I've been here 7 years, and it was definitely not in the master plan, but then it's a bizarre little place. It's got some, it's obviously got some lifestyle benefits, and I've loved being here. It's been a really good time for me as a human being. Yeah, as a maker of things.
I remember that Nashville, of course. I mean, when I've been there a couple of times for Summer NAMM, it feels in the same way that when you go to LA, it feels like the sort of center of the movie world. Nashville feels authentically built on music, although there is obviously banking and other industries, and a spearmint rhino, I remember, very popular there as well. But it feels like the bedrock is kind of music based, and that's a real kind of you can sort of feel it in the air almost.
It's funny because I think, things have, with all the great advances in tech and everything, you know, there's always these terrible side effects of everyone considering themselves a musician to an extent, being able to throw in these huge building blocks from sample packs or whatever and going, I've made a track, and then sort of umming and ahhing a few bits on top, and you know, and calling that a song. Whereas Nashville, of course, is very rooted in, you've got your instrument, you've got a basic, very vulnerable setup, and you perform your song to a bunch of people who know what a good song is, and if they're not moved, you haven't got a good song. You don't, you know, no production's gonna hide, you know, gonna allow you to hide when you're just sitting there with a guitar just playing your song to a bunch of people. And I guess that's a weird sort of, in a way,
who'd want to do that?
I know,
sounds like a nightmare.
Exactly. Yeah. But they do it all the time here, and it's funny. That's how they write songs here still, and it's really the emphasis. I would say Nashville's thing versus LA, for example. It's all about the song here, versus, you know, the sound in a weird way. So it's cool. I mean, not that that's my approach in here. Obviously, I quite happily hide behind a million like meows and you know. I don't have any particular rules. Nothing is sacred in here, but at the same time, I do appreciate that I have experienced it, and I'm sure we all have, that you've tried many a times to polish a turd, and you
Yeah.
should have basically written a good song and then
Flushed it.
hung all the other stuff on it.
Just
I mean,
flush.
really, they've got it right here. Yeah, you definitely.
That's a
many times
candidate.
I've
That's a
had some
candidate for the
floats.
show title there. Just flush it. Yeah.
Just flush. Yeah.
Just flush
Just
it. Right.
flush.
Okay. There we go. And of course, we also have Mr. Gaz Williams, who's here in Bristol. Good grief! It looks like it's sunny. Gaz, of course, bass player, producer.
Well,
Or have you just got like? Is there some sort of nuclear winter going on out there?
oh God, don't say that.
No. Okay. Forget that.
It's coming your way. If there is.
Yeah, that's true.
Ah! Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm just so happy to be on the show, and especially with Jamie, because wow, I've been a big fan for a very long time, and I always was really intrigued by the way that you'd sort of combined real kind of classic Staxy Motowny things with kind of crazy technology as well. I loved that, and I thought very few people do that, so that was really what kind of just turned me on to what you're doing. I thought it was brilliant. But I mean, that voice of yours definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
anyway,
I mean,
sorry.
Yes,
just,
I would agree.
But yes, delighted to be here again. It's great. So thank you.
I want. That's all right. I wanted to come back to Jamie actually, because obviously new guest, and maybe not everybody knows the kind of thing that you're up to. And I was really curious as to sort of, there's quite a lot of stuff that you do that I just think, how did that kind of happen? Because I mean, essentially, you're very fortunate in the fact you've got a great voice, but you can vocalize things, so that you kind of adopted where did you go from the singing part to getting into the idea of building and layering via looping? How did you start? Because I know now you're using the sort of Tim XL type flow machine, but what happened before then?
Yeah. Basically, I signed to Warp Records. I'd always wanted to be on Warp Records. And so I thought, how am I going to get on Warp Records? It's kind of a long story in a way, but I lived in Brighton at the time, and I was kind of seeing Square Pusher and a few characters that were in his orbit on a regular basis. There was this whole sort of Chelmsford crew that I hung out with a lot in Brighton, and one of those guys was a guy called Hardy, who ran a label with this guy Paul Fowler called Spy Mania that put out the original Square Pusher stuff. And those guys were my pals, and we did a lot of kind of odd music, and I was very happy to be making it. And that was my time. I was obsessed with Sun Ra. I was listening to a lot of noise music and soul, and like I do now. I've always had this weird eclectic taste, and I put out a record on Spy Mania, knowing that in a way that would be a potential inroad to Warp, and sure enough, they liked it. They liked the song on the record that was a bit more of an R&B track.
Okay.
They could kind of think, oh, this guy makes all these sounds, but he's got a voice. This is odd. And I think that was a starting point. So I got signed in '99, and then I spent all the advance moving to Berlin, and sort of found myself like screwed. I couldn't actually make the record that I needed to make. So I had to realize I had to play live, and sort of I basically looked at what I could do as kind of like what would differentiate me from my peers at the time. I wasn't as good a techno artist as the people that I was working with, Christian Vogel, Neil Landstrom, all the guys that I was kind of friends with and making stuff with. They were better at that than I was. And I thought, well, I can sing now. How am I going to use my voice and sort of make it stand out? And actually it was Matthew Herbert that I saw play. We used to have a night at the End. Do you remember that club, the End, in London?
Not me. Gaz may have gone.
Yeah. Well, we had a night, and actually weirdly, like Chris Cunningham played there. Like, it was a really good night. Christian Vogel really, and his crew, and No Future guys sort of arranged that whole thing. But yeah, I saw Matthew Herbert play there, and he had just these Boss pedals. They weren't really, they were loopers, but they were really crude. They could sample like for a second, few seconds, and he'd just make some sounds and keep the kind of energy going with these things. And I thought, man, this is so cool. I could do that. And I basically got one of those, line 6 delays back when they first came out, and I had like a Boss SP202, and I just used those two things to do my looping, which was really terrible, really. But it worked, and I'll just do these purely improvised shows, and in Europe people would be all right with that. I'd get a gig for a few people just doing these fully improvised shows that have literally no plan, and then eventually I realized I needed to make more of this thing. People were kind of enjoying it, so I set about learning Max MSP just in about 2000, and then I spent 6 months in the lab just building a looper that had multiple outputs, and I could sample, had a nice little ergonomic flow, and that's basically how I bought this house, was that looper.
Right.
Weirdly, because I opened up for James Brown with that looper, I opened up for Bjork several times with that looper. It was kind of like I made my tool. There wasn't something around at that time, and actually it was the machine that inspired Tim to build his flow machine, seeing me play with my looper at that time. It's a relatively uncharted thing in the looping world. People still don't really, I don't know, not that I feel weird about it, but I kind of made my whole career off that looper.
Interesting.
And I opened for Beck with that thing. So yeah, it was
Wow.
It was a cool way to perform. It was a good little looper. I kind of made version 2 of it at one point, but it's once I got into the flow machine, there was no looking back, because that thing is staggeringly powerful and amazing, and I absolutely love it. Tim is
well, I was watching, there was a thing you did at Red Bull Academy, well worth checking out on YouTube, where you go through it and you're just, it's literally, I mean, the technology is impressive, but it's the fluidity. And this is the thing that I'm really envious of people who are that fluent, and, brain to mouth is kind of about as short a synaptic distance as it gets. If you're able to be that fluent and just sort of, there was just like, oh yeah, that does this, and then suddenly you're off, you've got another really great idea that was, you just go, oh, it's just a ditty. But I mean, it has the ability to make something that sounds and feels compelling and sounds confident enough to base an entire thing on. I mean, that must be incredibly liberating. I mean, that must have taken you places that you just thought, this, to incredible heights, I'd imagine.
I loved my looper, much as Tim's is insanely powerful. My original one had different outputs. I had like 5 outputs to a console. I have a little Midas. There's actually a good example of it in action where I worked with Nigel Godridge in the basement. It's called.
Okay.
They did a bunch of video stuff. I was with Beck at the time, and I've got my looper there. It's kind of like, I used to have an MS-20 and a bunch of like Neutron octave pedal and a bunch of other pedals. So once my signals were coming out of the output on the console, I could really like dub it out on the board. And like, that's something that I miss a little bit. I don't have a setup like that in this studio, even though I've got a lot of options. I actually have not really got a great way to use something like that anymore. And it's true, writing with people as I do a lot more these days, and watching things like, The Fact Against the Clocks and stuff. And I've chatted with Tim about this, and we've kind of had a laugh and just been like, man, these guys are really great at building stuff, but the looper it's just so much quicker than that. You can have an idea in a few seconds, and it's kind of frightening. Talk about, I mean, a lot of them are flush worthy, but but quickly when to flush, and sometimes you just keep rolling on something, and if you've got enough patience in a weird way, you can kind of sculpt it into something compelling, like you say. And
that's really interesting.
I love loopers. They're great.
How do you, I mean, if you say you're working on either your looper or the flow machine, how does that initial spark of creativity, and you've built something great, how does that then become the basis of a track? Or do you just kind of go record to 2 and that's it, you're done, and maybe you might add a few things, or or you build things on top? How would that flow work in terms of turning that initial idea into a finished thing?
It's funny, it's weird. I've not really, when I worked with Beck on an album of mine. He co-produced my 2010 album, Compass, and he really, I think, wanted me to make an album with the looper, because I toured with him using that looper, and I think it blew him away a little bit, just in terms of like what could be done. I mean, especially at that time, obviously looping is something that we're so familiar with now. And it is relatively hard to not just make tracks that sound like they're coming out of a looper, which there's strengths and weaknesses to that.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously Tim's machine is particularly flexible, so you can mangle a sound so far from its original like sound that you can like a little like can turn into like some like crazy modulated like beast of a sound. So it's really just providing a little bit of a starting point and adding sort of a swing. The things that you're doing, regardless of how you're doing it, you could try to make a track with a keyboard, but you're playing drum sounds, for example. So it might not be as your main instrument. So for me, it does make sense to use my voice because, like you say, that I can express myself with that. So it's my main instrument. So a thing like a looper is a good way for me to use my main instrument to communicate little ideas. And my old looper had multiple outputs, of course. And I did do a song on my album Multiply, Little Bit More, that was completely done with a looper, essentially. And I used to do that song live a lot like that. And, you know, it's one of those things that from time to time, a song really works well as a loop. Right. You know, not all songs work really well like that. But I mean, you know, there's a lot of great songs that just go round and round.
And it's a fluidity. I mean, I imagine, you know, working in Nashville, if you're working with songwriters and you sort of break out that, it must be it must be really impressive and move things on quickly. It must be really terrifying for somebody who's not able to move as quickly as that with their chosen set of tools to sort of keep up, you know, because that's the thing. It's like one of the reasons that makes it so compelling is it's just so fast that you just kind of go, wait, I don't know what's going on, and it sort of doesn't matter what's going on really. But in our world, you sort of
does have to sound good.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had it misfire on me a few times where I've thought, oh, this is going to be a great way to break the ice, but then people have sort of felt like they were just seeing a performance from me, which is definitely not what I wanted. I wanted it to be an inspiring tool, but like you said, it had the exact effect of just making them feel like almost unwelcome at their own party.
Yeah, check me out.
So you have to be careful. Yeah. That's the thing. You have to do that to do something good, but at the same time, it can be a bit showy. So it's a funny thing. I think trying to educate someone to use it as a tool. Some people take to it really well. I mean, it really does on a case by case basis. It's totally like it's actually quite weird. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So I'm working with a looping setup at the moment, and the thing that I'm finding really difficult is to try and improvise. Well, is to try and build an A section going into a B section and trying to get that, you know, like building it from scratch, but doing a distinct A to B shift. And I was just wondering if you had any tips for that, for, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
see what I mean? How to...
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I used to sort of have such a simple looper in the beginning. Tim's looper can do multiple length loops, you know, and they can all be, I mean, now modern loopers allow you to do that. My original one only had a fixed length loop. It was just like a delay line, like a tape loop or something. And what I would do is just make too much information on the first pass, knowing in my mind that I've got the B section recorded. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, if you're doing an actual key shift, that could be awkward. But
the key shift, especially,
I'll just mute those. Yeah, I'll just mute those parts and just reveal them later. If you're doing a key shift, I think that the secret again is just to mute sections and play the new section in real time. So you mute the musical elements, and I mean, yeah, you keep the rhythmic elements constant, mute the harmonic elements, and play the new line live. You know, so you're playing the B section, the other parts are just muted, but you're playing and recording the B section and sort of building that up, but keeping the A section in your back pocket, as it were, to go back to. So which has the added benefit of like increased performance joy for the audience. I mean, I am very, as a looper, I'm quite, I've been through a lot of iterations of it and seeing people like having too many effects, for example, on the loops. I'm not a fan of that. Even though Tim's thing is very effects heavy, it can be. I prefer a looping setup where you can see and hear what's going on. I think for an audience, that's more compelling. If there's too much black box trickery going on, I've had it with people when I somehow had more of a hidden system where I'd use my feet, and people kind of came up to me saying, "You didn't do that." And there's a certain level of
that's got to be disappointing, isn't it? No, but I did.
Yeah, I know, but it's I understand. If you don't show the process, if you can't connect to it as an audience, you feel a bit conned. So I think there's a weird fine line with looping. I mean, obviously, someone like Ed Sheeran, whatever you think of him, he's incredible at looping. He's just sort of like mastered the art of street busking gone to Wembley, basically, to sort of with a nice Gaelic, nice Gaelic song to back it up. He's a perfect example in a way of like the Nashville songwriter with a bunch of tools. In a way, it's kind of weird. He's a funny one.
That's interesting.
I mean, playing looping like as a looper, like the idea of playing on your own at Wembley is pretty insane.
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing him at seeing the Glastonbury show, and I just thought, wow, I mean, that's brave. I thought that was very brave, and you really sort of thought, okay, that fair dues. It becomes very much about the song. I mean, it can be a little bit limited with the way that it can go, but he hasn't done too badly out of it, has he? So it's worked for him, I guess.
He's taken the loops to Wembley, which is basically insane. I mean, it's a sign of that's what shows for me the lineage of it all. Having seen Matthew Herbert when we're talking about the late 90s, it took that long, but it happened.
Yeah, amazing. And it's
a major. Sorry,
go for it.
I was going to say a major moment in looping history was when Katie Tunstall was a replacement guest, like a last minute guest on the Jules Holland show, and did her. So what was it? Flat in the Tree. Suddenly I see. Is it that one? I can't remember that. No, before that.
Telescope.
No.
Is it Telescope?
Wild. I can't remember what it's called. Something in the tree. The cherry in the tree or something. I can't remember. But she did that really, really well, like a complete arrangement using the looper pedal, and just and I think, but coming back to your point there, I think everyone could see her doing that, and that sort of black box trickery thing. People could kind of see the skill that was going on and really appreciated it. But I think from a mainstream point of view, I think in Britain anyway, I think that was a real kind of moment of just, wow, looping has kind of arrived in the mainstream.
100%.
Wow. I can't remember the name of the song. That's terrible.
I forget now. I think the thing about it is also when you see it done well, it just kind of does blow your mind, because it's just, I mean, like you say, many of us have difficulty in kind of finishing and completing stuff when we're sat in front of a computer. In fact, this sort of relates back to the Nashville story. When I was last in Nashville, there was some sort of a party at the Sony CBS studio, and I'd been working on an album with a Golf Rap, which is very meticulously constructed. It's very door heavy, and it's layered upon layered and discard, and and it comes out great. But the process is so completely different to Nashville. And I went to Nashville, and they were just saying, well, the way it works is we get the band in the morning, they'll go through the numbers a bit, then we'll record the album in the afternoon. I was just like. Right, and I'm still working on the hi-hat part for the intro, and it just really blew my mind, that way of working that just relies on skill and instinct. It's really impressive, isn't it?
There's a lot to be said for it, although a lot of the records do.
Yeah, they're not always to your flat. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
when you set up all the mics exactly the same way every time, and it's the same players, they all know each other, they read the charts. It is a bit more, it's understandable how it goes down.
I suppose so.
But I know what you mean.
Gets a bit cookie cutter.
It does. It does. They could do with like a balance. They need someone in there like questioning the hi-hat sound. A flange on the hi-hat will revolutionise, it would just be unthinkable.
Music, it'd be called fluntery music or something. That could be like a whole new genre. Right. No, fantastic. Thank you very much for that insight. I mean, I think let's get into a bit of topickery. Why not? Because this sort of opens it out, and we take it out. I don't know if anyone saw this one. This got parental advisory content because there was an F-bomb. We won't get there because this is very long.
But something's just arrived today.
Which it's
pretty impressive. Yellow Technology took my other iMac and basically cloned it with the cylinder, and today they're going to fit it. So basically I get to kind of go to lunch and maybe hang out at my favourite stationery shops. Let's do some control tests with the cylinder. This is good.
That's a weird confession.
Kind of Abbey Road projects that I've been working on. It's certainly the most number of notes for the most number of instruments I've written in a while. So lots of lovely short notes. There's legatos in there. There's longs.
So the gist of this is basically Christian Henson, who is one of the co-owners or co-founders of Spitfire Audio. They make fantastic audio orchestral samples and really interesting articulations. He's also a composer, and obviously he got a new iMac Pro, which is the latest sort of version, but he had his old cylinder as well, which is the same thing as you've got, I think, Gaz. And he just thought, what happens if I just completely overload it? You know, like reverb on every channel, 2 reverbs on every channel, and he got up to something, I think it was kind of 173 instances of contact plus reverb, and it didn't break. And the iMac Pro was better, you know, it didn't break, it broke less, that was still had the, but it just got me thinking a little bit about, excuse me, the need for power and speed. It's like, how much of this do we really need? I suppose if he was using Altiverb on every channel. I'll start with you, Gaz, because you've got a cylinder, and, you know, I don't know that you get often to the point, there are obviously frustrations about any computer system, but in terms of actual power, does it deliver all you need? I mean, do you really need any more grunt?
No, not really. No. And I've changed my working habits a lot as well, because I just don't really use VST instruments anymore. I'm just using just what I've got in my room. Or I use them very, very rarely. So I think they are, you know, real-time instruments are always the kind of CPU hog. So, you know, I think the effects, I mean, I do these big multi-channel audio projects, and no, I mean, no, I don't run out of headroom. As I say, I think as soon as I start chucking in virtual instruments, especially, you know, things like Omnisphere or whatever, they can be quite juicy. But yeah, that Christian Henson, he's a character, isn't he? He's really charismatic.
Yeah, I've interviewed him a couple of times. We did a Meet the Makers thing with him, and he's a really interesting bloke. And
yeah, he's good.
Knows what he wants to do, but also is an extremely skilled orchestrator. You know, so
right. Sorry, that was an aside. But yeah, I think I think it's interesting in that we've talked about this over the years, haven't we? When various things have happened, which has kind of given a speed boost to the processing ability, and you know, I mean, I still work at 44.1 24-bit pretty much. I mean, I have dabbled with 96, but I generally come back to 44.1 for a whole host of reasons. And with that, you know, so I guess if you are running 192K and massive sample libraries and all that kind of stuff, you know, you are going to be really kind of chasing the power thing. But for me, I mean, I just want to record like it's 1973, really. You know.
You need to go to Nashville. Although they don't go so much to tape, but yeah. I know, Jamie, I mean, you know, I don't know how much power, you know, your previous or any of your looping systems, but I'm guessing there were points at which it was like really pushing the boundaries of what the current CPU could do. I mean, are those kind of issues that are they a problem anymore, or are you right at the top of where you can go anyway with your CPU? Because I mean, here we've only just upgraded our 2009 Mac Pros, you know, and that's for video work. So
yeah, no, I know. I mean, I'm running everything, and I've done this for a while just off my laptop, and I've got one of those touch bar things, and they're all right, but they're fanny, so that's actually a total nightmare for me. It's really the fan. I mean, it comes down to the fan for me. So it's like
I'm glad you clarified that statement.
I know.
Yeah,
I thought that was a Nashville phrase that we hadn't got over yet. Like arse, you know, it's a bunch of arse.
Yeah.
I've changed. You know, I'm a strange bird now. I've been out of England for 18 years, so I'm definitely. Wow. I go back to England and like, where are you from? I'm like, oh man.
Mid-Atlantic.
Where do I start? Yeah, exactly. I'm lost in the sea. But I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I would like more juice. I mean, but I mean, it's just kind of. And when those iMac Pros came out, I was kind of like thinking, oh, I could probably, you know, do this with it. I could probably do that with it. And then I just got over the, you know, the kind of sales pitch that kind of got into my head for a hot minute, thinking, oh, render times are a pain in my ass, you know. especially with the podcast. It takes me a long time to render my podcasts out in a way, but I quite like having a little bit of time to do something else. I mean, you know what I mean? How much time do we really need to save? But yeah, I mean, if I was doing, I can see that there could be new kinds of processes that are not quite possible right now, like real-time spectral stuff that could get really intense and possibly open new sonic doors that possibly, you know, we might need new CPUs for that. But I don't think this current iteration is anywhere near fast enough for that. We're still at the Moore's law problem area, aren't we, with silicon?
Yeah, maybe.
It was interesting you saying that about the podcast. When I answered the question earlier, I was completely filtering that through my music, sort of making part of my computer system, but not thinking about the video editing side of it, which I'm desperate for more processing.
Yeah, that's a very different
I mean,
thing.
it's a completely, and I think that's where the iMac Pro is mostly sort of focused at, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
But, you know,
I think so.
Yeah.
I should actually point out, I didn't plug this earlier, but if you go to Jamie Lidell Music, one of the reasons that we got hooked up was you've got a weekly podcast, or an episodic podcast, should we say?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly, okay, of hang out with audiophiles, and it's interesting. Music people, producers, players, engineers. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. It's great, and it's something that you got in touch with, and you know, we posted a news item, which is how we got in touch. So I feel it's only fair.
Thanks for that, by the way. Yeah, great.
I plug it for you as well. If
Thanks. Yeah.
Not that I'm
it's
sure
been a big deal for me. It's been a big deal. I've spent a half a year doing it now, and I've really loved it. I didn't know how much. It was actually my wife that really encouraged me to see it through, as it were, from just an idea to a reality. And I've been really loving doing it. It's funny. It'll come. Sometimes it'll be like it'll be a Friday night, and have been doing some other stuff, and I'll realize, oh man, I've got to get this show together by Monday, and it takes me a couple of nights of, especially being a dad, I only really work at night. Right, from 7 o'clock onwards, and that time, you know, night time is great, but somehow time moves quicker at night. Do you guys find that? I don't know. There's sort of some times in the day when time moves slowly, and at night I'll look at the clock, and from 7 till 10 it's just gone. So I'll be like, I can either stay up till 2 and just be totally knackered, or I can try and just call it a night at 11:30 or 12 and just do the right thing and get up with everyone in the morning. So yeah, it's been funny just finding time to do it, because it just takes so long to listen and edit the interviews. I try to really edit them a lot, which is something I didn't realize I'd have to do. But obviously, when it comes to listening to people talk for like an hour or something, wow, it's bizarre. Myself included, the tangents that kind of occur in like regular speech are quite bizarre.
Tangents?
I don't know what on earth you're talking about. Well, as you know, that this podcast is heavily edited post of the fact, so I like to keep everything really tight. Actually, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, we've managed to create an ecosystem here where that's not so much of a big deal. But when you're talking to people, it's very important how they get represented. And sometimes we do it when we're doing videos here, and somebody might say something, and I might think, well, somebody might take that the wrong way, so I would edit that for them to make them, you know, not look like an idiot, you know, because that's nobody really wants that, unless they are idiots and that's what they want and it's a comedy show. That's fine, but you try, you know, those decisions sometimes take a very long time to ruminate and get right. So I mean, I totally get you there.
I'm the master of the shuffle edit now. I can do bizarre, like mid-syllable cuts and stuff. It's quite. I should do a little episode actually on the tech segment of the podcast about speech editing, because it's kind of, there's a lot of tricks that are starting to emerge for me, and I can use them in music production too for vocal comping, like things that you would think would be an awkward place to splice. They can be the best times to splice, you know. Anyway, it's I love doing the show, and I try to make tech segments and stuff. That actually takes me possibly the longest amount of time to think of things to say that might be compelling, to record them, and sort of almost have that kind of BBC approach to kind of how we're going to educate people through sound alone. It's like, you know, with video, it's so much easier, you know.
That's true. That's true.
A picture in 1,000 words and all that. A moving picture is probably like 10,000 words. So I mean, without all of that, it's quite tricky. But I like the immersive nature of it, and I do like the kind of almost the old school. This is a radio broadcast kind of aspect of it. It's for example, with this podcast, I would never watch this. I would only ever listen to it as a podcast, probably because of my dad life. And if I'm pushing the stroller, I'll probably just pod it versus having enough time to watch this.
Yeah.
Compelling as we all are.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
that goes without saying.
It's an audio document for me.
Yeah, well, no, and I think that's the case for a lot, because that's how this show started. Just pulling it back to the iMac Pro, in case you were interested in maybe picking one up, they start at 4,900 quid. And this, I was looking at this and I was going, oh, I wonder. It's like, oh yeah, let's stick 10 core graphics. Okay, that's 10 grand, and I haven't even upgraded the processor yet. Oh no, that's probably about as fast as that goes. Let's stick. Oh no, that's the first. That's as high as it goes. But that
could probably edit a pretty decent Hollywood style movie on it, though, couldn't it?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, but you could get like a PC. I mean, I think at video levels, you should be getting PC, shouldn't you? Really?
I think
you know.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's
but
all,
you know,
you make it work for your setup. Like you've got PCs for this show, right?
Yeah, that's right.
A PC.
So,
I mean,
well, we went from about 6 Macs to 1 PC and a laptop, which is just spitting out the web pages that we show. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
If someone gave me one, I wouldn't say no, but it is so pricey. It's just too much, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. You could buy
for most.
Yeah, I mean the PC that we run this on, which will handle 4K video, it was about $2,000. You know.
I know, that's the thing.
I mean, it's nothing like as powerful as that, obviously, but it's powerful enough.
Yeah.
We should probably interject with some a message from our friends at Isotope, because obviously this is the prize that's coming up. Should point out, those of you who've been waiting, this is Ozone 8. This is the Master Assistant being one of it. Ozone is a suite of mastering plugins and features which allow you to visualize and start your mix mastering process. You can start with the Master Assistant, which will ask you various questions, analyze your audio, and then go, how about starting with this? And it'll try and get you to where it thinks you want to go. And it's actually pretty accurate and a pretty good starting point, which you can tweak with. There's also the tonal balance control, which sort of visualizes the energy in each of the frequency regions and shows you how to kind of keep it within that, again, within the area you're looking for. But it's not, you know, there's plenty of leeway, so you can move it around. There's the ability to control other instances of Ozone and also Neutron 2 from within the same session, so you can affect the mix without having to bounce down, sort of in real time, which is very handy as well. And these visual controls make it much easier to see things, because you can't always trust our speakers in our ears if we're tired or whatever. Ability also to compare up to 10 tracks, so if you're going for a sound that's a bit like something else, you can compare between the two different sections of a track and, you know, nail it. Look at the spectral analysis, in-app referencing. There's loads of things that you could do with this. So if you're into mastering and you're into sort of getting the best final mix out of your audio, or even maybe just processing buses or whatever, Ozone really is something well worth looking for. If you go to isotope.com/ozone, you get, as usual, a 10-day demo, and you can download that and it'll be all there for you. And I think that's basically fully functional. We should also mention that we got a competition. Last week we asked you to tweet a couple of hashtags to enter the competition. We've got a winner this week. Hopefully I can pronounce this. I might just say his Twitter handle, because it's Christoph Schausch. Oh man, I should have read this bit. I should have practiced this before I look. I'm just looking at it now. SZYCHOSKI. Sijowski, maybe, I think. Sijowski. Anyway, the Twitter handle is at Sonic Orchestra, which is nice and apt. And you are the winner of this week's Ozone 8. So if you want to get in touch, we'll be able to get Isotope to drop that in your inbox, and you'll be the winner. What would be grand to win Ozone 8 help would be helpful. Indeed it would. Thank you very much. Anyway, Christoph, you are the winner. So congratulations to you. So where do we get to? We're oh yeah, archives. Now this was an interesting one, and this is kind of where have I got it? I'm sure. Oh yeah, let me find. This is the UCSB cylinder archive. What's the cylinder of the day? And this is basically a wax cylinder, which is the Edison invention, which started in about 1890, I think it was 1870, 1890 was when it started to go into full production. And as many people don't know, it was essentially the very beginning of mass distributed and produced music outside of sheet music, because before then, you know, you'd sit around the piano, you'd buy the sheet music, you'd sing it, or you go and see a band in your local music hall or bar or whatever. This was the first time that this became, it predates records. This is when things were mass produced. So what's today? This is There's a Mother Always Waiting You at Home, right, performed by Will Oakland and chorus. I don't know what this is going to sound like. I have absolutely no idea. Crackly, I'd imagine. I wonder if there's any vocal. Well, chorus, I'd imagine there will be. Here it comes.
So you're going to leave the old home, Jim. Today you're going away. You're going among the cities.
I won't not play anymore because there are some commercial licensing issues. But this is beautiful. There are basically 10,000 of these online.
Wow.
That have been, and they're free to play. I mean, if you wanted to use them commercially, then you would. But there's just tons. And I tried to find some of the oldest ones, and I was sort of thinking, oh, I could make a great headline. Let's check out what the kids were listening to in 1890. But think about it, 1890, 117 years ago. Where there were recordings here from. I mean, it's astonishing, really, when you think about it. And in terms of archive, you know, it's a great resource. It's the University of Santa Barbara. Well worth looking at. I couldn't find. I was really looking for some Telharmonium or some really early electronic music stuff in there. They haven't got any of that, which is a real shame. But there's loads and loads of other things. I don't know, Gaz. Fan of archives? I mean, you know, there are a bunch of them online, but this one is really kind of major. If you can get over, I mean, they're noisy because that's the nature of wax cylinders, but it represents a real huge body of work.
I can't help sort of like, you know, getting like fantasy images as we were listening to that, then just trying to imagine how that recording was actually taking place and what people were wearing and what, you know, just I love it. I love that. Because all that information, just hearing and that voice was beautiful, wasn't it? Just amazing. So yeah, wow, I'm definitely going to be checking this out. Thanks for the tip off.
That's all right. It's very interesting because obviously the way that people sing and play, I imagine a lot of it was going in as it used to. It used to go into like a big funnel, so you get that kind of slightly because the sound is captured and brought in, and the way they stand about, and also pre-amplification. You have to you would sing in a different way, a loud and kind of nasally way, a shouty way almost, to get the sound out. I know. I'm wondering whether in the home of National, where they bake tapes on a regular basis to bring them out of the archives and keep them going. I mean, this is an interesting topic, I think, for me anyway.
It's great. It's actually my guest on my most recent podcast, Roger Moutno, has one of those wax cylinder players. So I've heard one like in person, sort of playing back, and yeah, it's undeniably a magical experience for a lot of reasons, isn't it? Just not just the history, but just the sound is something that we're so familiar with. Is this brilliant tonal quality that sort of, I don't know, makes
mid-range.
Yeah, just mid-range. I mean, it makes you realize mid-range used to be
all there was.
You know, all there was, but in a way, it's still basically all you really need to communicate. So, pretty incredible. I love the idea that there's people will take these recording devices into all manner of strange sort of places. You know, plop it down, and everyone's crowded around. It would be amazing to see like photographs of the sessions as well, just to see where everyone was and like what kind of rooms they were in, and you know, just their reactions to this weird device. There's just the idea that it was so novel is something that obviously, you know, having a 2-year-old and stuff, accessing all music ever made on Spotify with the kind of demanding, you know, thing of like, let's have a listen to Lee Perry now, Dad. Let's have a listen to this. It's kind of like, you know, when you've only got such a limited thing, it's like makes it so magical, doesn't it?
I've just found a video of what it looks like. Oh. This is a recreation. Hold on. So I think there he goes. He's singing down a great big trumpet. This is
so cool.
And it's a wind-up sort of.
Yep. Even dressed the part.
There's a song called Hesitation Blues.
Nice pause there as well.
Reverend Gary Davis did this, blind Reverend Gary Davis, who was
Okay, let's get on with it.
You've probably heard the term cut a record. You ever heard that term? We're literally cutting a record here.
I like your thing, cutting a hottie.
Waxing a hottie. I thought that's what it was.
Waxing a hottie.
I'm
better.
pretty sure waxing a hottie. It came out because it was, waxing a hottie. When we always used to get phone calls when, as inevitably when you're remixing and you're doing that kind of thing that isn't actually creative, it's just the sort of tinkering for hours. You know, people would ring up and say, "What are you up to?" And we'd inevitably say, "Oh, I can't come. I'm waxing a hottie," because that was better than I'm sitting in a studio looking at a screen, crapping myself because I haven't come up with a decent, decent hook to hang the remix concept off.
Nick, do you know that just whilst we're on the archive thing, that radio.com, radio with lots of O's, it's just an absolute, that's been my favourite archive. I don't know how many O's there is.
I'll try 3.
.com.
There are 5. There are 5 radios. There we go. This is Pick a Country and Pick a Date. Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
That's
you
neat.
Pick a country, you can pick a date. You can also pick between like 3 music, like I think, what is it?
Oh my
you can see
goodness.
the genres there.
Start.
It's absolutely brilliant. And you can make a radio station based on various, so you can pick your country, pick the decade, and then let it go.
That is awesome. I have to say that's a slightly more friendly version of
it is, isn't it?
Than this,
so
which is let's have a look. This is really, this is not quite the same experience, but I'm glad it's there.
They need to incorporate, some kind of endless player, don't they? They need to make it so that you don't have to do anything. You can just kind of listen now.
Move a slider.
That's what that radio. That's what that radio.
That's brilliant. I'm gonna have to experience that as well. There was a similar thing that we did. We did something years ago, wasn't it? Where people upload field recordings and geotag them, and you can just kind of go, "What does it sound like here?" And you just have a sort of binaural recording of the shipyard in Gdansk or whatever it may be. And that was really good. I
always thought that'd be good. That's really cool. Yeah. Doing tours of America, I always thought it'd be nice when you wake up in a strange place, and it'll be cool just to have. I guess it's kind of like a Wikipedia, almost audio Wikipedia, and it's like, where are we now? It's like, well, some of these songs were recorded just around the corner, and it's like getting a sort of audio history of the place you're in, just sort of relative to where you are, and it'll kind of know all that stuff. But I mean, all that technology is basically coming, isn't it?
I suppose so. I mean, the thing that's very interesting as well about audio is, our brains are incredibly fast at identifying patterns and recognizing audio signatures of things. We can, that's why people can go, oh, that's a Lindrum, or that's a, it's amazingly, we're amazingly sensitive at that. So it makes sense to use that. It's almost like, in the same way that perfume is used to evoke memories of a time and a place. The sound can do the same thing, and I think wouldn't be a bad idea, perhaps. Maybe I'm sure the problem is you could. That would be great. I know if my phone's just recording all the time, so I've always got a record of it, and I can go, oh, what was I doing? But then again, you got privacy issues and all of that stuff, which is not very current. So,
when do you think nasal field recorders are going to come out?
Nasal field recorders. Yeah. Do you think Zoom, the Zoom will be we've had in ear, maybe we'll have in nose.
Just like a nose, just to,
I think Zoom probably have got one. Gaz, you're looking even more biblical at the moment. That's just like, I don't think I've got a choral sample we can put underneath that.
Yeah. This is going to be light and maybe a mouth.
Oh, hold on. Can you do that again? I'm going to take that. I figured out how to get a screen capture of that. So I'm going to get that. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Gaz. Eating lighting. I don't know. I mean, archiving is important, isn't it? I mean, you obviously with your moves. What have you done with your archives? I mean, do you have everything you ever had, or do some things fall? I've got loads of stuff on DAT that I was probably never going to see the light of day. I've got things of, do you bother, or do you just try and limit it to the projects or the products that are kind of relevant to your current time and place.
Yeah, I mean, I try to remind myself when I'm finishing something these days to essentially commit everything and end up with what is essentially an old school tape multi-track bounce of something, because the amount of times I have tried to unleash, you know, the audio of an old project only to find like battery is missing all its sounds, cannot load, la-di-da, and you just get a list of errors and you think, well, there you go, I can't listen to this. It's actually impossible. So I think the lesson is to sort of, if you care about anything, just to commit it to essentially a multi-track with no plugins and render the whole thing out. I wish actually companies, I mean, obviously in Ableton it's relatively
put it
easy
in the contract. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do. I've you know, I've been making sample packs recently, and it actually is something that's super handy. And I made a thing as well. I don't know if you ever caught wind of this. It's called Needle Drop, and it's essentially you can throw audio into an iTunes playlist. And what's cool about iTunes is you could take. Well, I did this for my last album. You can take a folder that represents everything that is an album. You know, all of the notes, all of the lyrics, all of the audio, all the sessions and everything. Pull the whole thing just into iTunes, and it will filter out everything that's not audio, keep everything that is audio, and make a massive playlist out of it. I did it for my last album. I got 17,000 audio files. Ultimately, we've got an archive situation on our hands in a way, you know. So I made essentially a shell script operated iTunes remote app in Max MSP that operates from inside Ableton, and you can use your computer keyboard to just play and essentially needle drop through massive playlists of audio, and it jumps to a random track at a random position in any of those tracks. Literally lets you hyperspace through audio, and when you hit record it makes a new track in Ableton, names it with the name of the actual track and, you know, the artist and the track name each time, and then sends each one to a simpler, chops up the audio using more shell script and crazy devious Max programming, and then you've got a way to make music from recordings that you've already made that are basically forgotten. So I kind of it's like kind of finding the hidden gems in your own archive is actually an issue. So I made this hyperspace needle dropper to kind of counteract the problem. It's available on the Max for Live devices. You can, you know, that Max for Live kind of website that's got all of those devices. It's available there, and on one of my show notes I've got a link to it. Not many people use it because it's quite convoluted to set up in a way, but when it works, it's pretty crazy. You can come up with, what I wanted to do is a kind of an Eno style like some way to get over this sort of blank slate problem of creating a song and having sounds. You essentially, I wanted to make a version of it that you just open a patch, an Ableton session, and it would essentially do all of that for you. It would play random tracks, record them onto simplers, and then delete the iTunes remote, and all you'd have in your session is 8 simplers all loaded with and sounds that have already been chopped up that are in your playlists and stuff, and then you have like a template of sounds to make music with.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah, no, really
sort of like an auto inspire button.
Auto inspire, yeah, that we can all do with that one. I think the other thing that would probably make sense is if there was a standard sort of XML format that you could, if you just did collect all and save, which is an Ableton thing, but not only did that bring everything together in a folder, it also made copies of all the plugins you used, or saved presets of plugins that were used, even if they weren't even if they were not actually modified. So you have all of that stuff in a structured form. In fact, so the worst case scenario, you could reload it and load the plugins in. You know, I mean, obviously, or collect all and bounce maybe, so that everything that is a virtual instrument or that has real effects processing just stems out, and you just go dunk, and it just goes, yeah, that's sorted. Don't worry, I've made an archive session with everything bounced, everything done like this, and that can go and live somewhere, maybe.
I mean, it takes time. You've got to be careful with stemming, and you can bounce all individual tracks, but if your sessions in Ableton are complicated, they have more grouping and effects on the groups, and doing that won't actually bring back the sound of the session. You've got to just physically take the time to think, what do I do to bring this thing back? Do I just and I think what I love about Ableton 10 is the groups within groups. So I've been doing a lot of that recently. Just stem making is great. You can just go, these are all the basses, these are all the drums. That would be enough for me to bring this guy back. It won't be everything, but if I wanted to press play on it and then say I can separate the drums, then I could. Maybe that's the more sensible way of archiving. We just kind of turn 128 tracks, or whatever this stupid modern track count is these days, into essentially 8 tracks, 16 tracks, like a reasonable old school session.
Oh, right. So with grouping, because you've got groups within groups, that means that you can just go all of these in a group, and then you can bust that group out as a bounce. Is that what you're saying?
Well, in Ableton, you can just bounce selected tracks. So you could just have selected tracks over an area of time and just go only bounce these. And if they're only groups, then it just bounces those. Mm-hmm. The only thing that you don't have is the master bus effects, which in my case is actually a big deal. So then you're sort of scuppered.
Oh,
but it would be cool if they could do a negative. What they should do is do a negative, like make an audio file that is the additional audio that's added to the unmastered song. It's a kind of like an additive.
A spectral gauze. Yeah.
Yeah, difference between the pre and post.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's great. That's a thing you could actually do. Never thought of that before.
I don't know.
If that's possible, then you could always have that to sort of spy as a parallel almost. You know.
Wow. Okay. So, right.
I'm good at tangents.
That's brilliant.
Medusa.
Yeah, we're going to do Medusa because I know Gaz is very keen on this. We haven't got much. We haven't got much to go on yet, and I have tried to get a bit of extra love out of my Dreadbox contact, but unfortunately, so this is. I mean, Dreadbox, as you know, we're very big fans, or at least I am, and I know Gaz is, of the Dreadbox synthesizers. And Polyend is looking pretty happening in terms of the sequence. In fact, Jamie, I'm pretty sure you've got one of those.
Yeah.
And this is a combination of both of those technologies in some form, and I'm kind of quite excited about this. We're going to have to wait till.
I had a little tip-off about this in Nami from the Polyend guys, who are really smart cookies. I mean, those guys are, they were brilliant. And what they've done here with the Medusa, because the Medusa, of course, was announced last year with an image of what it was going to look like. So pretty much everyone had it sort of, thought they knew what was coming. And the image that was released, you could see it all. So you could see all of the features, all of the knobs, all of the panels, everything as it was. Now this is completely different. And what happened, and this is what the Polyend guys told me, was that because in the originals it just had a very small section that said sort of sequencer by Polyend. But I think they just decided, look, if we're going to do this, let's really do it. And I'm just so impressed that this small Greek company, this small Polish company have just thought, we can do this and we can take on the best in the business. And so I'm super excited about this because, the Polyend guys, as I mentioned, very clever, and they're bringing their sort of software and sort of digital know-how, and Dreadbox are bringing their analog and sort of synth voicing know-how. And I think it's, wow.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, it kind of looks, at first look, I mean, I'm guessing it's probably a mono or maybe a paraphonic. It kind of looks a bit like what the Circuit Mono Station could have been if it had enough pads and a better synth, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jamie, have I seen that you've got a Polyend somewhere? Or there was a video where there was a Polyend sequel.
Yeah.
How would you say it? Sequel?
Beautiful.
They've been very nice. They've been giving me these things, and I've got to say they're superb. I love everything about the way they think about their products. They arrive and they're so tantalizing. The packaging is so great, and the build quality is so nice, and they really work. So yeah, I've been enjoying the Perk Pro and the Seek. Yeah, I know. I look forward to this. It seems like quite a slim.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at my old polysynths, I'm like, how do you get the circuits in a box that small? But people
I'm wondering because I know I've spoken with Yanis a couple of times, who's the head guy that we did a Meet the Makers with him as well, and he was, he's been all of their stuff has been hand built basically for a very long time, and I think they were running into that kind of the bridge where it's like, I can't make enough of them with people with soldering irons. I don't really want to go surface mount technology, so they're sort of working on this concept of maybe figuring out how to make things in a more mass-produced fashion, and maybe this is one of the first things about that. Do you know anything about the synth, Gaz? Because I don't know anything about it at all.
I think what happened was, I think it was pretty much, they'd pretty much figured it out in its original form, but in this back and forward, both of them, both Polyend and Dreadbox, have just kind of increased the functionality. Now I don't know more than that, I'm afraid, but I know that it's going to do a lot more than what it originally
okay, so this was the original Medusa.
That's it.
Yeah, okay, yes, I remember we did some, which has a very similar in look to the Abyss, hasn't it? It's got the same sort of ethic.
And you can sort of see combination of the Nyx and the Erebus and but what I think's interesting as well is that like the new Behringer Neutron, I think has definitely been influenced by the Erebus. Yeah, and so it's interesting that the Dreadbox are going in a different direction. So sort of because I was a little bit thinking, when the Neutron came out, I was like, oh, is this going to affect what Dreadbox are doing? But this,
well, they don't make the Erebus anymore, I suppose.
They've stopped the Erebus, haven't they? And sort of like this now looks like they're just, I don't know, grabbing the bull by the horns and going, right, let's do this. Let's make something really, really cool. So and it's not far away, is it?
No, well, we'll be at Super Booth, of course, and we'll be heading to Dreadbox as soon as we possibly can to check that out. Jamie, have you tried any of the other the Dreadbox stuff? Because I have to say, I can see you love your synths. I mean, there's a fairly Moog-heavy kind of backdrop there, but
it's a Moog-heavy backdrop, and which is a bit, doesn't really represent my aesthetic. The Mini does, but the Voyager possibly not as much. I love noisy boxes. I'm all about like something portable too, if it's the right size. But I was thinking it's really, really handy to have some kind of sequencer connected to a synth. So if you can control easily and kind of in a sort of really user-friendly manner all of the pertinent aspects of the synth and sequence them, it's just gonna make all kinds of new sounds. I mean, obviously that drummer from Another Mother, kind of the most compelling thing about it obviously is in a way the sequencer integration, isn't it? I mean, the sound source is not that impressive, but it's just the fact that you can modulate and change and make patterns really quickly. That's it, isn't it? I mean, that's where your inspiration is going to come from, and there'll probably be some randomization, and knowing the Polyend guys, there'll be some fun little like really good, well-functioning sort of sequencer aspects.
So you got you got the Seek there, then you just quickly tantalizingly shown us. Can you show it again?
I'll show you. Yes. Have you guys got one?
Like
no.
But when I played with one at NAMM, I was just struck by what a beautiful thing to use. The way the screen, the fonts on the screen, and just the whole kind of fluid operation of it. It's really nice. I know a lot of people are because it is expensive, but when you see it, it's built to just a beautiful quality.
It is, and it does make you think. It's great how I was coming up with these. Basically, the last thing I did with it, and it was on another one of my podcasts. I'm just going to keep blatantly plugging it, but
go ahead.
To be honest, it's been my main source of kind of venting sort of techie things that I might not feel I could justify doing. Just in terms of how long they take and why am I doing this? Why am I hooking up like 5 mono synths to make a polysynth? And I actually made a weird controller for the Kenton Pro 2000 that I fully made it available as a SysX patch for Max for Live. With Ableton 10 you can control SysX obviously, so now you can control the Pro 2000, every aspect of it from a plugin basically, which took me ages as well. But part of the lesser known parts of that Pro 2000, you can turn polyphonic MIDI into a split into multiple mono, and I've done that with other Max for Live devices before. Like you can basically split the poly into a bunch of monos, and I was just, what I do, I take the Seek thing that's a bit odd is a MIDI only, MIDI out or USB out, which you'd expect it to be CV out, which probably would have been.
Have you seen the
they
new
do
thing?
Make a breakout box poly.
Yeah, the breakout box with That's pretty neat.
Yeah, which is smart, which is amazing. It looks great. I mean, that's what I kind of would need in a way, but I kind of circumvented that. I'd just take the MIDI back into Ableton, have all the tracks in kind of, and then split all the MIDI out, and then send the MIDI to the Kenton, and then the Kenton takes the MIDI and splits that out to CV. So it's a bit convoluted, but it worked. Wow. And just having like the sequencer, all of a sudden looking at the sequencer and knowing that it was controlling. And that now each like blob on the sequencer can send out chords and not just monophonic data. So I was getting these really Raymond Scott kind of odd sequences happening. And there's something about step sequences that always makes me happy. But most of them are really limited. So like having something that's a little more fully functional and with different pattern lengths, and you're just looking at it and you sort of start tripping out a bit, because it's like after a while it can just look like utter chaos. But sonically, it can be really pretty special. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Excellent.
I think there's a time multiplier coming for the different tracks on the Seek as well soon, so you can run them in, like all at different rates, which I think will. That
kind of stuff is everything on one of these sequences. I mean, because otherwise if you're just keeping it really loopy and it kind of feels like a push, but it's way more impressive when it's doing the multi things. And I'm personally a big fan of like bringing a chaos into this stuff, but it's good stuff. They're gonna this box is definitely gonna turn some heads. Good on them, man. Just such good people. They deserve the success. And it was funny when I was interviewing Susan Rogers and she was talking about Prince. She was Prince's engineer. I'm now happy to go on record to say that I think that Susan Rogers was Prince's producer for Purple Rain, Parades, and Around the World in a Day, and Sign of the Times. Because it's no coincidence that she was involved in all those records. They were Prince's greatest work, without question. And when she left...
David Tickle had a hand in them, though, didn't he? I thought he was producer or co-producer of them. David Tickle.
I mean, Prince would always have taken the credit for producing all and writing everything. But Susan Rogers is incredible, and she was brought on as a tech essentially to help him with his tape machines and stuff. But she set up a mic on the first day, and she stayed with him for 4 years.
Yeah, well, and I'd imagine. I mean, as with many people who work with that sort of level of intensity, probably wrung her out a bit. I'd imagine, because it's just.
Oh man, totally.
Yeah.
But her main point was Prince, basically, as opposed to someone like Michael Jackson. If you think of the big companies in the business, Moogs and stuff being like Michael Jackson, groomed from birth to be like these successes. Prince was just a kind of a kid from Minneapolis who did it alone with a bunch of friends and, took it all on. And much like these guys, they're taking on the big shots in the big leagues. And, that's the kind of stuff that all of this Euro rack and all of that kind of world it's so inspiring to see boutique companies with big ideas being, the internet allows all of that stuff to just flourish. And I love it. I love all of that. Good ideas should win. And if the same thing can happen for music, we're going to be in a good place,
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good, point on which to perhaps end, because we're probably we've been rolling a little bit. It's always good. I mean, I don't mind that at all, and it's absolutely fine. I just think I always put more topics than we need, and that's fine, because we've covered everything and more, which is absolutely brilliant. So it's probably a good time to wrap things up, I think. So unless anybody's got anything they want to particularly add, I don't know. I always like to give this opportunity where we go 4s up, or 3s up in this case, 3s up and a circle. Is there anything you wanted to...
About the Medusa, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well...
Do you know how much it's going to be?
No, I don't, I'm afraid.
I guess, yeah.
No.
Who knows?
But it looks...
I mean, as I say...
That's true enough.
But I mean... Yeah. But I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? For Dreadbox, you've got a very distinct visual look to their instruments, and Polyend, albeit not many things, but they've got a definite visual identity, and so it's going to be interesting to see sort of manifest itself in the Medusa. You can kind of get those little glimpses of it in those images, but it doesn't look like a Dreadbox, does it? It looks more like a Polyend, I think, possibly, but yeah, so I mean, I think definitely what you're saying, it looks like it's a new manufacturing process for Dreadbox as well. So, I wonder what that may in fact inspire as well in their designs. That could be quite an interesting thing. It maybe
Absolutely.
It opens up new avenues, and as we know, if you look at all of Dreadbox's products other than the synthesizers, like the different effects and various things that they make, there is a really kind of, it's a dirty and dangerous kind of company in a way. They make instruments that sort of just, I don't know, it's
charismatic. I think I always like to use
charismatic.
That's charismatic instrument.
Yeah.
That's the way you do it. Okay, well, thank you ever so much, folks, for joining us. Thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us at such short notice. And very happy to have you anytime you're ready. You're off. What's next for you anyway? Before you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm off to LA on Friday. Got a bunch more co-writes and interviews for the podcast, and just kind of balancing it all with the dad life and the studio life, and loving it. Springtime's beautiful here, so I'm in a happy place before the insanity of summer. So this is the time to enjoy
Nashville at its finest.
When it comes to Nashville, now is the time, definitely. Yeah. So no, thanks so much for having me on. I'm a big fan of you guys. This is a real treat.
You're more than welcome, and anytime if I can certainly add you to the topics list, and just feel free to jump on any time. It's always a pleasure to have new blood, as it were.
Yeah, by all means.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Don't forget, if you want to check out what James is up to, you want to get over to Jamie Lidell Music or at Jamie Lidell on.
There's Susan Rogers.
In fact, is Susan Rogers. Yeah. Hold on.
What do you prefer, Jamie? Is it Lidell or Lidell? What's your preference?
Well, my actual name is Lidell. So when kids at school would say, "Hey, Lidell." Lidell. They sort of shorten my name to Lidell, so it's ultimately Lidell.
Right.
Lidell. Ultimately, I figured if I was going to have an artist name, people were going to bludgeon my name like they used to at school. So I'd like curtail it for less bludgeoning. But it's since spawned, many a phonetic variation, which I find amusing, because ultimately.
Did I say Lidl? Did I say Lidl there?
You say Lidl. That was great. That's great. I mean, ultimately, that's what I'm saying. I just don't care. It works. It's got. It's. It
is what it is. Okay. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. And always a pleasure to have a man of your caliber on, which I also mispronounced. Also, Mr. Gaz Williams, thank you for joining us too. Much appreciated.
Cool.
We'll
off to the stationery shops, guys.
Stationery shops, yeah. No, I've
got to hang out in my favourite stationery shop.
I do like stationery, but not enough to maybe use up much of my spare time with it. Now, luggage would be a different matter, but stationery.
Yes.
I don't own much luggage. I don't know why. I mean, I think the last luggage I bought was some cases for NAMM for our cameras, and before that was probably years before. But
But there you go, guys. You know what's again for Christmas.
Yeah, some sort of injection molded plastic PVC case for equipment. That's the sort of thing.
I have to say though, when you get like a good bit of luggage, like the other day, I just bought a Roland FCB 300 foot controller. Brilliant thing. But when I went to get it, it came in a special Roland carry bag, and like as chuffed as I was with the pedal, I was just super chuffed with the bag.
The carrier bag.
That's the thing, the UAD, like that. I remember I did quite a lot of work with Universal Audio. I did a video for them, and we'd been chummy for a while. And one of my friend's bandmates was saying, "What about a carry case for the little twin or whatever?" It's something that these companies can overlook. It's really important, actually.
Definitely.
It's sort of like you spend a fair bit of money on these boxes, and then I'm having an issue now going to LA. I want to throw a bunch of my stuff in my bag for traveling. Luggage solutions are needed. Yeah. So I need. I can't look up a bubble wrap it. You still wrap. I mean, back in the techno days, you'd throw everything in a Samsonite and just throw your underwear around an SP 1200. It's travesty, really, to think we used to do that. But that's what used to happen.
Yes, that old SP 1200 smell. Yeah, can't beat
exactly.
it.
For sale,
used.
Used in various ways. But it's we need packing solutions. Next episode, I look forward to it. I'll do my research.
Luggage, a luggage special. Yeah, that you can. What's the best luggage?
If you want the viewership to go through the roof.
Yeah,
this luggage special.
That's right, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. A pleasure having you, as I say, and we will see you all next time. Before I go, actually, Gaz, of course, did I say goodbye to you? I can't even remember now. It's we span off.
I just span it off somewhere.
Yeah, that was your fault. That's all right. But look, what I was gonna say was we're gonna be looking at the Ventris dual reverb sometime in the not too distant future, which I know there's something.
It's so good. I'm having such a lot of fun with it. It really is good, and it's got such good MIDI on there as well. So for a pedal, it really is a real powerhouse of a reverb. So I mean, yeah, great.
That's what it looks like.
Oh, I love it.
I did a Fun Friday thing with it. Was it last week or the week before? Before, which I put something in it. I can't remember what it was.
Who makes that?
They're called Source Audio. It's essentially what it's like is two DSP reverb effects that run in series or parallel, but you can freeze them. So you can set it up so that these buttons do whatever. So you can hit that and you just freeze one reverb and carry on playing through the other one. It's really nice.
That's quality.
Really
but it responds to lots of things of MIDI. At the moment, I'm trying to use... So I'm doing a big program change setup, more of which will be revealed in time. But part of that is using that. And even though there's only like 4 presets on the front, well, you can make it run as 8 presets. It'll actually do 128, I think, presets.
Plenty.
So if you got it on the output, if you're plugging a synth into it, for instance, and you just patch that MIDI cable from the synth into the input of that, you can pretty much create your own preset for, when you've got, say you go to preset 78, you can't see that the pedal is saying 78, but you can just save the preset as it is, and then
that will be all the pedal assignments and control. Yeah, really useful. But before we do go, I should also mention that don't forget you can win a copy of iZotope Ozone 8. We're looking for the hashtag Balanced Master and the hashtag Ozone 8 at Sonicstate and at iZotope. In fact, I'm not sure if I mentioned this at the top of the program, which is very amiss of me. So iZotope, if you want to win a copy of Ozone 8, we're looking for the hashtag Balanced Master and the hashtag Ozone 8 to at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. Anyway, that's it for this time. I want to say thank you very much to our guests. We'll see you all in the next available opportunity. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Excellent, folks. That was grand. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really good fun. Lovely to have you, Jamie, and thank you. I knew it would work out. I listened to your podcast. I thought, yeah, that'll be fine. He's not uptight.
No,
he gets some jokes.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, as I say, anytime you fancy it, you're more than welcome.
Would love it. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys.
That's okay.
Good to meet you.
Right,